I have never played Grand Theft Auto, so for any mistakes that I'm about to make, I'm really sorry. Please don't Gamergate me. But I'm very excited about the idea of this being one of the most highly anticipated media releases of all time. This is Grand Theft Auto 6.
Can I say I played Grand Theft Auto 1 in 1997 on my PlayStation. That's my experience with Grand Theft Auto, so I have played it.
1997, I was 5.
I suspect my experiences are a little out of date now. The game's still the same though, basically, right? You steal cars and drive them around.
One would suppose that it's not like broadly different in its premise, but the suggestion is that this game is going to cost $2 billion to make. So that would make it the most expensive video game of all time. And that is more than the construction of the Burj Khalifa skyscraper in Dubai, which was at the time the highest building in the world. So just to put that in context, there's a claim being made that this game is going to make $7.6 billion in its first 2 months. And the entire Hollywood movie industry makes about $7 billion a year in profit. So this is an extraordinarily huge cultural moment, whether or not you play the game.
But it's not happening this week. It's not happening till May next year. So what's happened this week? People are just disputing that figure, basically. Can it really make billions?
There is some dispute over this figure. So Grand Theft Auto 5 did make $1 billion in 3 days. And unquestionably, Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to top that because the video game industry has expanded so much since then. But getting to $7.6 billion in 2 months, if you assume that each game costs about $80, let's say, that would mean that Grand Theft Auto 6 would have to sell nearly 100 million copies in 2 months. And it took Grand Theft Auto 5 years to do that. So that figure is very much in dispute. But what is not in dispute is that it's going to be one of the biggest entertainment launches in history, not just among video games, but among all entertainment sectors. And Lewis Hamilton actually this week said that he would cancel all of his work when this video game comes out just so he can play it.
Yeah, I'm sure Formula One would have a view on that contractually. I mean, is it undermined, undersold, Arion, undercovered in the media as a whole? You hear this accusation a lot, don't you? The games industry is bigger than movies and music, so why are there loads of film and music reviews and hardly anything about gaming?
Yes and no. I sort of feel like there's enough media out there if it's the media that you want. Like there's no shortage of games review websites or people across walkthroughs, Twitch streams, like everything. Like you can ingest video games until your eyeballs bleed, and I'm sure that's what a lot of people do. But I think that Grand Theft Auto is a very particular shining star in the cosmos of video gaming generally, and I think that the attention that is focused on it and its release, and I think one of the other things that happened this week was there was a bit of uncertainty about whether that May date is going to slip again. Some commentators and supposed insiders seem to be saying that now May is going to be more like October. But yeah, I think that interest in even when it is going to come out, which is like approaching fervor, really highlights the fact that this is a massive deal. And as Harriet says, it's going to sell a lot of copies. Quite how many copies, we don't yet know. That's going to remain to be seen next May/October. So, we'll have to wait to see.
It's also a UK success, isn't it, Felicity? Which is, I think, something that is underplayed. I mean, people who know their games know that Grand Theft Auto originated in Dundee, but a lot of international players probably wouldn't be able to point to that on a map.
Yeah, it was Dundee. It was a very small and very scrappy. There's some great videos and articles on how we made it, but considering where it has got to today, its origins were very, very humble indeed. I mean, it has just stoked so many controversies over the years because of all the famous things. You can have sex with a prostitute and then you can kill the prostitute to get some of your money back. And that obviously provoked outrage. I think Brazil banned it outright. And I didn't realize this, but the publicist Max Clifford, he was the one who planted sensational stories about the game in the tabloids to try and ramp up its appeal. But I think it was also about freedom, right? It was a game where, I vaguely remember playing at university. It must have been a very early edition, but it was freedom. You could sort of play the game and go through the levels and do it properly, or you could just get in a really beautiful car and go off for a ride listening to the radio in a way that you wouldn't be able to afford that car in real life. So it was very, very clever. Another interesting thing is that the guys behind Grand Theft Auto also made Lemmings, which is a brilliant game.
Oh, that is a classic. Absolutely.
Love that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Where is the $2 billion version of Lemmings? Because I would be buying an Xbox.
This is
so
what
that
the
I
world
can play
wants and needs.
So, Harriet, yes, okay, it is a big deal, but why is it your story of the week?
I think that when we talk about the success of the gaming industry in the UK, I think we're really underplaying it. The entire video game industry is worth more than our domestic music and film industries combined. More than half the people in the UK game, 1 in 6 adults play regularly, and the sector supports 75,000 jobs. So we're the 4th largest exporter of games in the entire world, the biggest in Europe, and actually we're the 3rd biggest in the world if you kind of ignore the Cayman Islands, where some of the UK firms are domiciled for tax reasons. So this is something that affects absolutely everyone in the UK, but it is true that so little global media investment goes to the gaming industry, less than 5%, according to a recent report. And although you can find criticism and analysis of games everywhere online if you want to, it is true that most mainstream publications don't have dedicated gaming critics or reviewers. And there is a tendency towards kind of this intellectual snobbery towards video games. And the reason why it's my story of the week is that there is this enormous discrepancy with how successful the video gaming industry is, how profitable it is, and how many people play it versus how much attention and investment it gets, both from the government and from cultural criticism.
But can you say that about porn or gambling? And there are lots of things people do on their computers that don't get much attention in mainstream media because people think of it as just a leisure activity they do by themselves, effectively.
I think that's really doing a disservice to video games as a medium, because if you think about it, a video game encompasses film. It's also an interactive, immersive experience, encompasses graphic novels, art, music, television. There are more than 3.5 billion gamers worldwide. So this also every game crosses cultural boundaries and language divides. There's a physical element. So there's also a physical element as well as problem solving, intellectual stimulation. It's incredibly sociable as well. So what's really interesting...
Are you a gamer, Harriet? You're talking like you're a gamer.
I'm actually not. I'm actually not. But I find
Right.
it incredibly interesting that this whole social media ecosystem has grown around gamers. So platforms like Roblox and Discord and Twitch that are so central to young people's lives in particular, and that friendships are being formed around the world on these platforms directly around gaming. People are using these as dating sites. Like, this is an enormous cultural phenomenon that I think doesn't get the attention or the investment that it deserves.
Okay, but on government attention, just on that, I mean, actually, Arion, one of the reasons Britain has so many success stories is actually one of the things the Conservative government did do in 2010 is give a tax break to the gaming industry. I mean, that did happen in Britain.
That's right. The Video Games Tax Relief Scheme was introduced in 2014, basically to support the development of culturally British video games. And it was intending to do so by allowing eligible companies to claim back up to 20% of production costs. But that these days is seen as helpful, but kind of outdated. Industry groups desperately want that modernized, potentially expanded or replaced with more generous relief and globally competitive schemes, crucially, that match incentives in places like Canada or Ireland. And I think there is this concern that without the kind of focus that we're talking about, if the government maintains this sort of benign disinterest, that the UK's position as this major entertainment powerhouse is going to slip. And I think that needs to be supported by so many things: increased public investments and grants, skill development and education support. You have to start right at the beginning to invest in university partnerships and visa pathways to ensure that people can actually come into the country and contribute to the British gaming industry. There's so many ways that the government can continue to support this industry if it cares about its economic bottom line. And of course it does. It wants to promote entrepreneurialism. And if it's serious about that, then it does need to pay attention in exactly the way that we're talking about.
Why have we ended up with just a few big blockbuster titles, though, Felicity? Why are these so expensive to make and relatively few and far between, these big franchise games that come out?
It's a good question. I mean, the question of why some of them are so eye-wateringly expensive, like 2 billion, is just, I can't really get my head around it. But then when you think that they are literally building entire universes, it is basically like a lot of the budgets are double what the biggest Hollywood films make. But then you're like, well, they are making big, Hollywood universes where you can just go roaming and traveling. And that takes lots and lots of staff, lots of time to make. So some of the companies employ hundreds, if not thousands of staff, and they take longer to make because there's such a big focus on graphical fidelity, I think it's called. So making it look really realistic. And some of the level of detail is just insane. Like I was reading about the designers behind Spider-Man 2, which made it so that skyscraper windows would reflect rays of sunlight, and getting all the textures right and all this sort of things, just mind-blowing. But realism comes at a cost. But I
Why is the dialogue so crap? I've never understood. I mean, it's been a while since I've dipped in, but when I look at games, I hear all this that everyone says, and then I look at them like, if this was a film, this would be a B movie and it would be on telly and it would be bad. Why does everyone think this is good when it's in a game?
On the other hand, I think the success of The Last of Us, for example, so the TV adaptation, I don't think that there has been a lot of criticism of the dialogue in that. I think that was widely considered to be like a beautifully written TV adaptation of a game, using a lot of the same dialogue, a lot of the same characterizations, very, very, like, the realism was very focused on. It's incredibly detailed in that way. So yes, there are things like Minecraft movie and Roblox and all of that becoming incredibly popular. But I don't think that there's going to be just as much variety among video games, if not more, than there will be in the film industry.
And also, just to defend video games and their dialogue for a second, there really are games like Assassin's Creed 2 or more recent, narrative masterpieces. They're often referred to as like Red Dead Redemption 2. There are these games that have incredible story arcs that take you over like multiple hours of play and standout performances. And then you have like little indie games like these, tiny little ones that have incredibly inventive settings or mechanics, or even sometimes emotive storylines that some of the bigger games don't take on. And I think that there is that real scope for the exploration of stories in a different way. I remember one of my friends, who actually was the games reviewer at the Times for a while, used to say that his children didn't really want to watch movies anymore because it wasn't an interactive experience, whereas games, like, they'd been raised so much on games that they expected to be able to interact with a storyline and drive it forward. And I think that that's a thing that, again, if we fail to properly maintain the industry, could be lost, especially as some of the big studios are suffering under the weight of this expectation. The big sort of AAA games are now kind of resting on sequels and remakes and all of that because it is so expensive to produce them, and lots of them are laying off staff. And I think there are real dangers if we lose either end of the industry, either the indie developers or the top level.
Well, when they bring back a sequel to The Secret of Monkey Island, that's when I'm dusting down my Xbox.